Welcome to all our United States Serrans and Serrans around the world. Chris is going to be talking to us about a program that he directs for Vianney Vocations. And his title of his talk is Harvesting the Crop That is Already Planted in Your Diocese. Chris, welcome to Serra Meets.
Oh, it's great to be here. But what I'm going to talk to you about today is Vocation Pathway, and this is while we believe at Vianney that 100% in the need to create awareness for vocations, this particular strategy is it really focuses on harvesting the crop that God has already planted in the diocese. One of my verses I pray on a lot in this work is Matthew 9:37, which I'm sure you're familiar with. It says, "The harvest is abundant, but the labors are few." Um, and I always remember that in this work, even though we got this great strategy called Vocation Pathway, the work is the Lord's work. Another Bible verse, John 6:44 says, "No one can come to me unless the Father draws him." So the Father's drawing these young men to priesthood out there. Um, God doesn't need our fancy comprehensive strategies to increase vocations, but He does invite us into the work. So in Matthew 28, the Great Commission, He tells us He wants us to be part of that work. And then in Acts chapter 1, He empowers us to do that work. And then lastly, so we don't get prideful when we do succeed, John 15 says, "I am the vine and you are the branches." And he reminds us to remain in him so that we can bear fruit, because apart from him, we can't bear fruit. So that's just a kind of a how we look at vocation pathway. It's about harvesting the crop. And some of the dioceses that we're working directly with this strategy, vocation pathway, hopefully there's some people on from these dioceses. I heard one mentioned, which was the Diocese of Bridgeport, but others include Gaylord, Michigan, Denver, Boise, Idaho, Saginaw, Michigan, Victoria, Texas, Beaumont, Texas, Altoona, Johnstown, Pennsylvania, Savannah, Georgia, the Archdiocese of New York, Diocese of Springfield, Massachusetts, and Fall River. And we're always in conversation with vocation directors and bishops who are exploring solutions to increasing priestly vocations in their diocese. So here's just a kind of give you some context of vocation pathway overall, and then I'll go into each one of these. And I think it's good for Sarens to listen and see what we're doing, where we're having success, so that in the event you are talking with your vocation director from your diocese or your bishop from your diocese, um, you're able to say, "Hey, have you heard of what the new thing Vianney's doing?" And invite them to take a look, because I think it could really help them. And what you're going to see, the elements of it, what we say, they're not groundbreaking, they're not really new things, but we're able to execute these at a high level to get some success. And one piece in here, you're going to see that Serra has done a lot of work in one of these areas to really which has been, I think, really encouraging for dioceses and parishes around the country to lead these what you call called by name campaigns, which Serra really has led the way on that, and continues to work with called by name campaigns. But the first thing we look to do is make sure that the vocation director is not alone in his work, that he's supported with a team of priests. And again, I'll talk about why this team is made up of priests, and I'll talk a little bit more about what this team does in a minute. But then the second thing we do is we get that vocation team in touch with a large number of young men from the diocese, and and then we build strategies to accompany those guys through the discernment process. And if need be, if a diocese has a need to have to, maybe they don't have the funds to take on programs like this. We run an appeal, which not only will cover the costs of this program, but more importantly, puts money in their account for their future seminarians. So some dioceses have been going along for years with lower numbers of seminarians, and they've adjusted their budgets to kind of fit what their current or most recent realities have been. But when we're talking about increasing a place from having maybe 5 seminarians to 20 seminarians to 30 seminarians, they may not have the funding structures in place. So we help them put that into place too. And then it also gives us another opportunity at that moment to really be in front of parishioners and to amplify the vocation message at that time. And Vianney's also going to help the vocation director with all of the other stuff he has to work with. And these vocation directors often have I think Maury Retuiste is on tonight. His son probably has, we always joke about how many jobs Father Kyle Retuiste has, being the vocation director, being he's the vice rector at the seminary. He's also like head of I forget what they call it, but something to do with the ethics, moral ethics in the hospitals and all this stuff. So a lot of times these guys have multiple jobs. A lot of the vocation directors we work with are also pastors of one or maybe a couple churches they have to take care of too while they do vocation work. So we help them with all the back end stuff as well. So as we launch off, so we get before we talk about the team, the we really work with the bishop and the vocation director to lay the groundwork and put together a solid plan that the team can be brought onto, that it can be clearly communicated to the whole presbyterate to make sure everybody is on the page. One scripture I think of is Proverbs 29:18. It says, without a vision, the people perish. So we want to make sure we have God inspired, Holy Spirit inspired direction so that we don't lose our way and that we can be on track. So you may have come across this yourselves, but the idea of getting every priest in the diocese to be actively promoting vocations and working with young men is a great idea, but it just has not been the reality. Or as the demands on the priest increased, and there's also a decreasing number of priests in the diocese, a new approach is really needed. So what we do with this vocation team is we pick a handful of guys in the diocese, priests, who, if they either recruit them to be on the team or if the diocese has a team, we bring them on board for this plan and we train them specifically for the vocation pathway strategy. So the bottom line here is what we're doing is expanding the role of the vocation director. Oftentimes the vocation director finds himself alone in that spot, and in a way he's patted on the back and told, good luck, go get them. And every time you see the vocation director, the question the priests have is, how many new guys do you have? And so the vocation director is kind of by himself in a way, wanting to do a good job in this area. But now he's going to have at least 5 other guys with him who are on point, held accountable, going to roll up their sleeves and get to work with them. And what we ask from the team that joins the vocation director is that they meet monthly with us on a monthly Zoom meeting to check in, find out what's going on, accountability, keep moving things forward. They also get trained and run discernment groups. In the fall, in the spring, we're using the Melchizedek project. I'll talk to you about that in a minute. And then we ask that team to help us with the called by name follow-up. The young men who are interested or thinking about priesthood or have questions about priesthood at some point need to be in contact with the priest to have those conversations. A lot can happen before that. Mom and dad can help, parish can help, different things can help. But at some point, he needs to meet with those priests. And so those priests are going to be on board to have those conversations with these young men. We go out to the diocese, and our plan is to lead a workshop for the priests so that the entire plan can be communicated with the entire presbyterate, and we so they have context of what we're doing, and then we only ask them really to do two things, well, three things. One is we teach them how to effectively run the call by name campaign. Number two, we also coach them on how to effectively run that appeal weekend so we can have the funds we need for the new guys coming in and support the seminarians, and the vocation efforts. And then number three is simply to, when we communicate something from the vocation office, for them to communicate it to their parish. Pretty simple. So oftentimes, you heard Ann mention I worked for a diocese for 12 years and a parish for 16 years before that. So I've been to a lot of diocesan meetings where people come in and they're just like, oh, okay, here we go again. But what we find is that the priests who come to these workshops leave excited and optimistic because the plan and the organization that they see. I've had priests say, finally, we have a plan. Or even priests coming in saying, I don't know. We've talked a lot about things. I'm not too I'm a little skeptical. But then they say to me, you know what? I think this is good. I think this is going to work. So that's good. So then now with everybody on board, the bishop, the vocation director, the vocation team, and all the priests, now we can effectively run a top-down called by name campaign. And again, Sarah has paved the way for this, and a lot of different dioceses, parishes now are running called by name campaigns. But just to give you an idea, when we say a lot of young men, get them in contact with a lot of young men, New York got 1,000 submissions. The Archdiocese of Denver, 953 submissions. The Diocese of Boise, which is the whole state of Idaho, about 120,000 Catholics, 750 submissions. Father Brett Brandon in Savannah will tell you that he has 400 men in his database now because of called by name. So we're able to get these numbers, like I said, because it's top down from the bishop. Think of like when you run an annual appeal in your diocese, and it comes down from the bishop to the priest, and everybody's on board to do it. That's what's happening, and we're very well organized with it, and it's very well communicated. So this is exciting. Now, once we get all those contacts, the next thing that's important is to organize all those contacts. And this is interesting because as I work with meet new vocation, or maybe they're not new, but vocation directors, or maybe they are new. And I ask them how are you keeping track of your men? Oftentimes it's in some obscure Excel sheet, or if I ask them who are you working with, how do you keep track of like your um your good candidates for application for seminary? And one priest pointed to his head like this and said, I keep it all right here. And so what we did is we have made a customized database that when all the names come in from called by name, they get synced up with a database for the vocation office and the team. And I'll show you a few things about this. But so when the names come in, most of them you can see on the very bottom there will be labeled in the status as just contacts. We got this name from called by name. We don't know a whole lot more about the guy, but we have his information. A prospect now is going to be a young man who has responded to us in some way. Maybe he's come to an event, a discernment retreat, or a day event, or maybe he's come to the St. Andrew dinner, or now some people are calling them called by name dinners. He's interacted with us in some way. So now he gets moved into prospect. And then those guys that the vocation director or the guys on the team, the priest on the team, are having conversations, and these guys are asking about application for seminary. Those guys are tagged as candidates. And here's some neat things about this. there's some different views that we're able to give the vocation team. So when I have my meeting with them, we can pull up the screen and we can look at the guys who the men who are assigned to the priest. So from left to right, when we say, okay, Father Anthony, you got these guys here. Father Daniel, you got these guys here. So we're able to say like, okay, what about, oh, you had some conversations with Brandon. Tell us about that. And then we're able to see kind of like what's the next best move for some of these guys. So the idea is nobody is getting left behind. Another thing we do is we can organize them by events. So let's say we want to look at all the men who went to Covadis who are now maybe Covadis is just for like middle schoolers. We want to look at all the guys who went to Covadis who are now going to be in high school and start inviting them to these events. Or we want to look at all the guys who've been to these events who are now going to be graduating from high school, moving into the college age. We can look at those different views. We can strategize around that for what we do for events. Or when the vocation director's asked, how are things going? How many guys you got coming to these events? He's going to be able to run some reports and say, oh, well, we had 40 guys come on the discernment retreat last weekend. So we'll be able to do that. And another neat thing about this is all of the priests on the team can access this on their phone. And you see down here I don't know if you can see I don't think you can see my cursor, but on the very bottom, there's like a little message thing there. They can click this and say, okay, I just had coffee with Justin. And Justin is going to graduate from the high school this year, and he's very interested in applying for college seminary. Well, he'd go into the propedeutic first. But we can put that note on there, and that team priest could make a note to the vocation director to let him know, hey, we need to keep up on Justin. So just a few more things about this, and I'll move on. Just to give you an idea how this is helping vocation offices. So Denver had 955 submissions. We had an event with the Archbishop, and 100 guys attended the event. 75 of them told us they wanted to be in discernment groups, and 39 shared that they want to talk to the vocation director about applying for seminary. So it's kind of this movement we're doing. New York, similar thing, 1,000 submissions. The Cardinal Dolan had 5 separate masses at the cathedral, and then he invited them over to his private residence for a reception. 160 guys over those 5 events attended it. 75 shared they're super interested in being part of discernment groups, and over 30 shared they want to talk with Father George about applying for seminary. I have Father Brett Brandon's report right here, and here's I'll quote him here. He said, "Many men are considering seminary now. I literally cannot keep up with all of them. I estimate," he says he has 400 men in the database through his call by names. "I estimate that we have about 75 to 100 men active in discernment." So it's working. So those guys get put in that system. We start to kick off a weekly message to them, some aspect of discernment, how to pray, what seminary like, how do I talk to mom and dad, and it comes right from the vocation director as it's coming from him. And if they answer it, it goes to the vocation director. Now, all of that leads to our goal, which is getting in personal contact and relationship with these guys, with the team, so that the team can walk them through the discernment process. So, we're not going to social media our way into vocations or website our way there. At some point, we got to be in personal relationship with these guys and get to know them and help them discern. One key strategy we're using is the Melchizedek Project. Father Brett Brandon, who wrote the book To Save 1,000 Souls, he says there's no silver bullet in vocation work, but if there was, it would be discernment groups. Father Michael Pratt, who's now the vice rector in the NAC in Rome, has worked with us to give Melchizedek Project a major overhaul, and this has become our core event. I know that of the teams that work with us, we've had 71 guys be trained in this, priests, and another 10 will be trained in January. And that doesn't even count all the other dioceses, priests that are taking part in this. And just to give you an idea of how it's helping, One diocese had 8 guys on their vocation team. They got groups going in the fall. They ended up having 82 participants, and they doubled their new seminarians that year. Fall River last year said that 6 of their new 7 seminarians came through these groups. And last spring, Boise was able to get 4 groups going and had 52 young men participate. So we're doing this with all of these 13 dioceses, really stirring up the pot here. And also most dioceses already have events like these taking place. But what we do is we just help organize and strategize and make sure the vocation pathway initiatives are put in the right place and they align strategically with where these different core events are. So last weekend, Father Brett in Savannah just had his discernment retreat, and he had 40 men attend. He said out of the 43 are very serious about applying. Father Jason in Denver said he's seeing numbers double at his events. Some other, now I'm going to kind of tail off and wrap up this so you can, if you have any questions, you can ask me. But some other ways we support the vocation offices, we come out and do a media day. So we do pictures, videos, testimonies, all kinds of content that we can use so that when we're promoting stuff in each of the dioceses, it's all personalized for them with their guys. We're not having to look up stock photos and stuff like that. We do their websites. Some of these places, I think Bridgeport's on here tonight. That's your website right there. Um, Beautiful websites with content for the young man who is coming onto the site, who is curious and looking around, which often differs from the diocesan site, which may not be able to have as much content, or the diocese isn't able to build it out as far as Vianney can for them. We do take care of all their promo and communications. Um, their posters, a lot of the posters you see in the diocese are from us. And then, like I said, if they're in need of paying for the program and raising money for their seminarians, we put together a 1 weekend appeal where we get seminarians in the parishes, we share what's going on, and ask people to support the effort. Uh, and this is proven to be super successful. And if a diocese is not in need of the money, we take that same weekend and we just use it to really just promote vocations that weekend, still getting seminarians in the parishes, talking about what's going on, sharing with them the success we've been having, the diocese has been having, and invite men to look at the events that are coming up. So this is kind of gives you a visual of everything I said. Is Father Brett's retreat he did last weekend is a good example. He had 40 guys come to it, but out of the 40, right now at least, only 3 are interested in applying. So what we're trying to do across the board with all the dioceses we work with is fill the top funnel with a lot of contacts of young men, and then invite those guys to groups, which means if we have a larger top funnel, we'll have more guys coming to events. We'll be walking with more guys in discernment, and we'll have more guys applying for seminary. And Lord willing, we'll have more guys being ordained as priests. So that's and here's our team. Um, you guys probably know some of these faces from the conferences, especially Genevieve. You may notice that Matt Yogus is no longer on our staff because he's a seminarian for the Diocese of Savannah now. But we've brought on new staff who some of these folks on here are specifically working on parts of vocation pathway. So in the end, the vocation director gets the help he needs. There's way more guys in the pipeline, more guys attending events. We're helping them with all the back end of stuff, more guys applying for seminary, and it really establishes a pathway to priesthood. And I'll end with this quote from Pope Benedict, which I think is great, which is, the ability to cultivate vocations in the priesthood and religious life is a sure sign of health of a local church. There's no room for complacency in this regard. So he's saying that when we have a healthy diocese, healthy parishes, vocations should be the natural fruit of that. and we need to work hard to make sure that we have that healthy spot. So with that, I'll shut my screen off, and if there's questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Wondering, you talk a lot about the men. So is this strictly priests?
Vocation pathway is it's for priestly vocations,
Okay.
and some orders have approached us, and it really works. It works better on a diocesan structure where we can work with the bishop through the vocation act director down to the priest, and that structure it seems to work well.
Okay. And it's interesting that your emphasis on accompaniment. We had Bishop Burbage from the Diocese of Arlington on a couple of months ago, and he stressed accompaniment. So are you finding a lot of fruits from stressing that?
Oh yeah, that's um I know in it we talk a lot about the parts almost equally, but when it comes down to the work I'm doing with these vocation teams, which is about 80, like I said, about 80 priests around the country, that is our goal, is that accompaniment piece. But we need to first get in contact with more men, get them to two things so we can meet them and then accompany them and walk with them. Some guys do come out by themselves, and present themselves and say, "Hey, I'm interested." But we're finding that this is really helping men who are sitting in the pew begin to imagine themselves like the possibility of priesthood.
Excellent, excellent. Teresa from Ontario wants to know, do you have any Canadian, any diocese or archdiocese in Canada using the program?
No, but I keep trying to get a hold of the guy from London who I talked to at NCDVD who said he was interested. Um, um, and there's some other yes, we would work with Canada if for sure.
Yeah. Okay. And Renee, who's one of our district governors from Texas, wants to know, how is this promoted to bishops and vocation directors?
It's primarily promoted. Well, we try to reach out to them and let them know about this resource for them. We try to send stuff out to them and to make phone calls and connect with them. But our best connection is at NCDVD when most of the vocation directors come for their annual conference, and we have time with them, and we get some time up front to talk about this initiative with them. That's a big one. Um, and then usually it's the vocation director who tells the bishop about it, and then we'll have a meeting with the vocation director and the bishop and share with them, and they can ask questions and this and that. So the bishops are, as you know, they're oh, I worked for bishops for 12 years. They're not always the easiest to get a hold of. So but they usually put a trusted guy in the position of vocation director. And so if the vocation director is bishop, this would really help vocations in our diocese. We should listen to what they have to say together and ask some questions and see if it's something we should consider. So usually that's how it happens.
Yeah, yeah. Someone from Texas asked that their diocese is starting to use some sort of a ministry program. And are you familiar with that program at all? She thought it was similar.
Okay, the two dioceses we're working with right now are Beaumont and Victoria.
Oh,
We do a lot
Beaumont's
of work with
outstanding.
Father Greg in Austin, but he's not officially doing called by name,
Uh,
or I mean, sorry, vocation pathway. But like we help him with his called by name, we help him with his website, we help him with a lot of stuff. But there is an initiative in Texas, and someone maybe can put it in the chat what it's called, but it's like Texas 100. This goal to have 100 ordinations by, I'm not exactly sure, but
wow.
someone from that initiative is in contact with us and helping dioceses getting connected with us to help them because it's a supernatural fit. But also there's also vocation ministry that's in Texas, which is with Rhonda. Her last name's Grunweld. But she's also in Texas too. So if you see vocation ministry, that's Rhonda. Vocation pathway, Vianney vocations would be us.
Yes. Okay. And how do you go about? I thought the team approach where you form the vocation team. How do
Mhm.
you get that started, that initiative with the vocation director?
So usually we have a meeting, and our intake meeting, we talk about in the diocese, like where are the hot spots in the diocese, and where are priests who would be good with vocation work in those areas. So some places want to just say, well, we need a guy in all the deaneries, and you can do that. But we say, well, let's look at where the fish are, and let's fish where the fish are. Where are your hot spots? You have campus ministry, or
Ah,
vibrant youth ministry, or vibrant parishes, good Catholic schools, etc. And where are the priests who are around those places? And let's develop our team there. And so we're looking for the right guy who's in the right place. Because you could have the
outstanding.
right guy and he's in a place where he'll tell us, "Hey, I've been put on this team, but like there are no young people in my parish, and I'm way out in the boonies." And he struggles putting together some of these initiatives with guys in his area because there aren't any guys in his area.
Yeah. Yeah. Just great strategies, Chris. Really great. Yeah. And I don't have any more open questions, but I did want to give a little update. I saw Matt Yogas in October. We went to visit
Okay.
him at the seminary, at the
Oh,
John the
great.
23rd Seminary, which is just amazing. And we're going to have one of Matt's seminary professors on in a couple of months to talk to us about older vocations, which I
Oh,
think
good.
should be very, very
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, and I want to thank you so much, Chris, for coming and letting us know about this great program that Vianney is doing. And we wish you all the best. I'm
Yeah.
going to
And could
remind,
I could I say one
please,
one thing? I was
please.
thinking a lot like so, we have the this network of people who want to really support the church with the Sarens, groups like us, Vianney, and I would just encourage those Sarens who are in dioceses where you see vocation pathway being put into place. Get involved with your local parish or your vocation director to see how as a group, you can help make sure that the parishes have the best call by names ever, or these initiatives. Like if Father's putting together these different events, like find out, Father, what do you need and how can we help? Because again, he has his team of priests, but those teams of priests aren't going to be the guys who can offer the kind of help that the lay faithful can offer with our time and resources. They're going to play a unique role within the plan as a priest, but they're gonna need us. So as you see these efforts taking place, reach out to your pastor, to your vocation director, and just let's make sure they get all the help they need so that these initiatives are successful.
Thank you so much, Chris. That's great advice.